Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Breaks with Red Hat, bite-sized 10-minute chunks of live discussion with some of Red Hat's leading digital technocrats, where we explore gripping and edgy topics such as unicorn DevOps, agile integration, cloud native, event-driven architecture, and edge technology deployment. So for today, we have lined up an exciting itinerary. There will be a live poll for you to share your opinions and have a say. A quiz with a great prize, which is a Red Hat goodie bag, limited edition t-shirts, notebooks, water bottles for one of you, lucky winners. And a live Q&A session, right, which is your turn to grill us with regards to what we have shared in today's topics. There's also a chance to win a coffee voucher on us by completing the feedback form for today's session, which will be via a QR code that will appear in the screen below at the end of the session. So here we go, David, the last episode for this series, right? For those of you who have missed our previous episodes, so there were a total of 5, you can actually catch the recordings of these episodes by following the URL that is shown below. We're also pasting the URL in the comment box, so you can click on that to access them direct. So today we'll be discussing on edge computing strategies, and we are happy to have back again Mr. David Forden, who is guaranteed to provide some insights and perhaps some mind-expanding ideas related to edge computing strategies. Welcome, David. Maybe you could tell us a bit about yourself for those of you, for the audiences who are joining us for the first time, just to introduce.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Tommy. Great to be back together. Got to admit, I've been a bit jealous of you working with Waleon last week, but fortunately for me, I still handle the applications development portfolio for Red Hat, helping customers with digital transformation initiatives as well as next generation architectures. I'm very keen to share some insights on edge computing strategies and offer some ideas on how to deal with that more strategically.
Thanks, David, for the introduction. So let's start the ball rolling, right? The first question I have possibly is a generic one. What is edge computing? What makes it relevant? And how can it add value to an organization's business?
Hey, you're cheating, man. That's 3 questions. So anyway, great question to set the context and so on. So basically, edge computing is essentially about really getting the processing closer to the user. It's driven by the needs of pretty large geographically dispersed organizations that have had to depend on unreliable, high latency, wide area networks. So, over many years in the IT industry, unfortunately or fortunately for me, I've seen a lot of different trends going on, and the trends seem to have kind of morphed between centralized and decentralized models a few times. So my kind of take on this is that, edge computing is pretty much the latest decentralized or distributed model trend, and actually for very good reasons.
Wow, I've never thought about it that way before, but that's because probably I'm not been in IT as long as you have. But yeah, this is actually very interesting. Could you elaborate a little bit more on edge computing for the benefit of our audience?
Okay, sure. So the basic concept, like I said, is to place the compute capabilities closer to the end user. And the idea of this is to actually increase the performance and decrease the response time and help to align the solution better to the business needs, hence the value add. I guess that kind of sounds simple, but it's probably not. So centralized platforms do have significant benefits, but they've traditionally suffered due to extended, unreliable, high latency networks. Edge computing kind of sets out to solve this and solve it in the context of burgeoning business needs, some of the improving network capabilities that we're seeing around, and the reach of new networks. So in my opinion, actually, we're on the cusp of a pretty significant cycle of decentralization, with edge computing really set to proliferate. Maybe it'll even proliferate in a manner similar to the way that personal computers did in the 1980s. So to me, therein lies one of the very key challenges.
Interesting point, my friend. I mean, basically, we've covered the basics of edge computing. I think it's also very interesting to hear what our audience thinks. So we have prepared a poll to hear from you. Do click into the live stream video to enable the poll functions. So the poll question that we have prepared today is, we'd like to know, what are your current plans and status, if any, for edge computing adoption? So you can share with us what are your current strategies at the moment, if you have any, ranging from having general interest to researching options, or maybe you have already adopted some form of edge computing in your business. So we'd like to hear from you. Please feel free to actually share your opinions on our polls. So while everybody is actually looking over the poll question and answering them, let's get some more insights from David. So David, my next question could be kind of a tough one, right? You mentioned about some of the challenges around edge computing. Could you elaborate a little more for the benefit of our audience?
Yeah, okay, let's shift that to a slightly more positive kind of a note. So although there's challenges, actually many capabilities also come with edge computing, along with the challenges. So one of those capabilities is the ability to support really large networks of interconnected devices. So for example, protocols like MQTT have been devised for that reason. MQTT is a standardized lightweight protocol that's designed for device integration. Another evolving concept is actually what's known as Federated Edge. What that essentially means is providing a consistent way of deploying services across multiple providers, either on-premise or even in public cloud. So in a broader context, actually many industries do stand to benefit from edge computing, and on the flip side of that, the use cases and topologies are so many and varied, as are the challenges.
Sounds like it could be a pretty complex problem and architecture to have. So, David, you mentioned there are quite a number of challenges, right? What are your thoughts around this? What are the challenges that you can highlight for us?
Yeah, absolutely right, Tommy. So there are some really significant challenges. Not wanting to look too serious or make everyone too scared, but actually the first challenge really is to understand the potential pitfalls and then commit to actually building a strategy. So having been around for a while, I've seen a few of the obvious sins of the past in different distributed computing endeavors. And I think from that perspective, many organizations are just simply not used to planning and strategizing to deal with a major shift or a tectonic shift, if you like, in computing like this. So two of the really massive strategy challenges to surmount are, firstly, the sprawl of infrastructure, and secondly, the sprawl of data across heterogeneous networks. So to me, adopting a multi-cluster Kubernetes strategy has become a really great way for customers to reduce the risk of edge endeavors. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg, actually, Tommy.
Wow, okay. I didn't realize that there was actually so much to consider in this topic. But David, then again, you mentioned that these challenges, right, for developing an edge computing strategy. Could you delve a little bit more in detail about these challenges?
Yeah, sure. So now the actual iceberg, man. So I already mentioned infrastructure sprawl and data sprawl, but the devil's in the details, of course, right? So let's talk a little bit about infrastructure sprawl. So actually your strategy is going to have to not only deal with diversity of use cases, it's going to have to deal with diversity of topologies for the various different services and networks, different technologies, different standards, and that in itself is a really huge challenge. So along with that, given where we're at with cyber threats and hacking and so on, the protection of infrastructure and services for security, for privacy, for compliance is another really massive issue that needs to be addressed. So, strategies to deal with the environmental conditions, both in transit to the edge centers and at the physical location of the edge center, is also a minefield, man. So data sprawl. So there's essentially three central issues around data sprawl. Firstly, integration. Secondly, governance. And thirdly, analytics. So, developing a strategy for integrating geographically dispersed databases, applying governance to that data, and then aggregating and breaking down the analytics is a really massive challenge. So, in summary, edge centers, they need to be secure, they need to be robust, they've got to be managed at scale. In fact, many different scales. Scale might be kind of one box or a few devices. It might be as large as a sort of smallish data center. They need to be managed remotely. They need to be operated with autonomy, with very little or even no skilled local IT support. And that actually goes for all layers of the solution. So, as mentioned, the distributed data side is also very critical. How does that all sound, buddy? It's a bit of a worry.
Sounds very daunting and challenging, my friend. I'm actually kind of wondering how there are a lot of organizations that are coping with this and whether I would want to do this.
Yeah, so absolutely. It is very daunting and it is challenging, which is really why both strategy and technology selection are critically important to success.
Yep. So before we continue the next question, I see our dear friends Nestor and Emmanuel. Thank you so much for joining us again. I hope you guys are enjoying the talk. Give us some love in the comment section if you're enjoying this. And I also see some of the questions are already flowing in. So keep them coming. We will take them during the Q&A section. So David, for the next question, right, I think it's very interesting. Now that we talked about the challenges, I think everyone wants to know what are the significant technology aspects that you should consider when you're building an edge computing strategy or architecture for your business.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. So, actually, it'd probably take a month of Sundays to really go into the details, but let's take the example of just addressing remote locations. There's a really long laundry list just for that. So firstly, ruggedized systems, the network's latency, the network's throughput, decentralized management, reducing the attack surfaces that are exposed to hackers, things like eventual consistency. Everyone's familiar with that model for databases. The architecture for services and storage, integration topologies, provisioning of apps and services is a huge issue. Device interconnections is another one. And along with that, streaming and reliable messaging architectures. So, that's really just a short list. So just kind of imagine, stabilizing a solution at just one site with a list of third-party components like this. It can be really, really daunting. But one of the biggest issues in my mind is the prohibitive costs of going with proprietary components for software when it proliferates to the edge centers. So in my mind, open source strategy is a must for choice in that matter.
Right. Thanks, David. So before we continue on to the last question, just a reminder to our audiences to please complete your poll questions, right, to share your opinions because we will be closing the polls shortly. So David, on to our last questions before we move on to the Q&A and quiz section. So I'm sure everyone is interested to know as well, right? Red Hat with all its technology platforms and a complete portfolio of softwares. How does Red Hat help customers to transform or start building their edge computing platform or strategies?
Yeah, great question, Tommy. And I'd probably add a little bit into the thought processes I've had in this already, in that you could say that edge is really just kind of a way of transforming digitally as well. So all the principles and so on that come with digital transformation also really, really matter. So people and process and culture, the way you go about doing things, I think really, really stack up. And that's an area in which Red Hat has significant experience, both internally in our own culture, as well as providing professional services that can guide and help organizations to really change their culture to move in that direction. There are actually many, many ways in which Red Hat can help. I could probably spend 2 or 3 hours on this question alone, but in short, with technology, it's about containers, it's about microservices, it's about messaging, it's about high compute and memory density runtimes, it's about built-in DevOps tool chains, agile integration, containerized messaging, centralized multi-cluster management, and systems automation. So these things all go a long way towards solving the key challenges, and the solutions are going to be really a combination of these things, and it's really your dream space to get in and solve those problems. So we've already covered many of these items during coffee breaks, but to put the whole picture in perspective, just imagine the potential for configuration drift or split brain problems for a large geographically dispersed organization with apps, integrations, databases, messaging deployed to several edge centers. And I don't mean tens, I mean maybe 100s of centers, I mean possibly even thousands of centers. It's pretty much a nightmare scenario no matter how you look at it. So Red Hat comes to the table with a comprehensive and compatible solution and strategy for really putting the thought leadership into this and implementing such an infrastructure and then managing it. So you can actually avoid the nightmares before they happen.
Thanks, David, for your answers. Actually, it sounds like Red Hat does have a strategy to help customers comprehensively. Before we continue, David, as promised, we're going to have a quiz for our dear audiences, right? So for the prize, we have prepared some great limited edition Red Hat swag, which is like T-shirts, water bottles, a notebook, a pen. So to our dear audience, please lock in your answers into the comment box. Speed matters, but so does accuracy, right? And our panel will decide on a lucky winner after today's episode ends. So, David, I was thinking, right, maybe I'll let you have the honor of selecting a question for our dear audiences for today's quiz.
Oh, okay, Tommy. Well, that's not so much of a massive challenge for me. So I'll try and pick an easy question. Is that a good thing to do?
Oh,
I think it's easy.
definitely. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so
All
here we
yours,
go.
bro.
Yep. So everyone, name two challenges, just two, commonly faced by edge computing architectures. And if you think about all the stuff we talked about, it's kind of been aligned around those two challenges.
Wow,
I think
you're
that should-
practically giving it away, bro. So for those of you, please lock in your answers in the comment, and we will have our panel who decide the winner after the episode, and we'll notify you via messaging. Right, now let's take a quick look at our poll results. We will go directly to the Q&A after that. I think basically the poll results, a lot of the customers or our audiences out there are right now at the stage of researching alternatives, right? So I think they are aware of edge computing and they are actually seeing what are the best strategies to approach that. What do you have to say about that, David?
Sorry, that was how we compare with other companies in the edge space, was it?
Yeah, no, I mean, basically the poll results, a lot of people are actually researching alternatives.
Oh,
So
yeah.
essentially, I think that they're still in the research phase. So what do you think about that? Any advice that you want to share with the audience on this?
Yeah, I think just keep researching, man. It's a deep subject, and I think every organization is going to be very, very different. So there's no one size fits all strategy for edge, and across industries between, say, government or telco or banking, for example, or maybe natural resources organizations. There's a myriad of different alternatives and approaches to getting this done. So I think the research and the strategy are really key to success.
That's sound advice. So David, let's do the Q&A segment now, right? I think some of you guys have locked in the questions. We'll do this 5-4 method, first in, first out. The first question we have is from Mr. Tan To Nien. And basically his question is pretty simple actually. What's the strong point and the benefits of using edge computing, in your opinion?
Okay, that's fairly easy to answer. So the strong point is that it provides a faster response time to users. So you can imagine, let's say you've got an unreliable network that has some high latency, and you've got a branch that's out in one of the far reaches of Asia somewhere, and the people at the branch need better access to the system so that they can actually process business, right? So having the compute placed closer to that user helps them to speed the processing through, and the data transfer and so on back to the head office and so on can be done asynchronously in the background. So I think that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Interesting. We do have two more questions, I guess, but they're somehow interrelated. So maybe we can answer them together. Aisha has got a question. How does Red Hat compare against other companies to provide an all-in-one edge computing solution? And of course, we have Nestor who is asking a question which is similarly related, right? To mitigate the challenges for edge computing, is it better to use cloud providers, right, when building the strategy?
Okay. Yeah, so I guess those two questions are in a sense related. So, firstly, there is, in my mind, there is no kind of one size fits all edge solution. It really comes down to the specific use case and the specific uh, company, the infrastructure challenges they're dealing with, and what they need to resolve those things and get a good solution in place. So, related question would be around the public cloud side. So, there may be some instances where actually companies can significantly benefit from deploying some of their edge centers into the public cloud. But and obviously the public cloud providers are coming up with some alternatives like this. For example, AWS Outposts is one of them. So they're able to kind of ship you a small data center that has all the AWS software deployed in it. And just putting that into the context of what we do at Red Hat, we remain very independent of deployment. So we're able to deploy across any of the public cloud providers as well as on-prem. So we've got the flexibility built into what we do to enable customers the ultimate in choice. So I think that's really our innate strength in the whole thing. And that's really how we
Uh,
compare to other companies out there. Yeah.
that's interesting. Red Hat allows you to have your cake and eat it too. Yeah. So one last question before we wrap up. I think we're short on time. This question comes from Dominic Chin.
Hmm.
So he says that people are actually moving towards hosting application at the edge, right? So in your experience, what would be the common good applications or use cases that you have seen in the market?
That's a great question, Dominic. So if you consider industries like telecommunications, they're doing things a bit differently. So their edge strategy is sort of twofold. So the first aspect of the telco's edge strategy is usually geared toward serving their own internal network processing. So maybe in a virtualized way, or maybe in a traditionally hosted way, but moving some of their compute internals closer to their base stations and so on. The other aspect of
Mm,
telco is enterprise. So part of the business that they're in is actually providing edge services to enterprises. So there's a number of
right.
different initiatives going on in telcos around the region for that. Another interesting industry is banking. So banking, no matter what anyone thinks, is one of the most distributed industries on the face of the planet. And it
Mm,
continues to become more distributed because they need to provide not only branches but agencies and various different services to serve those branches in remote locations. And that could be anything from the branch processing to lending to basically anything that a bank does. So there's a potentially massive number of use cases that Edge can be leveraged by those top industries for. Yeah.
okay. Thanks for that great answer, David. So yeah, I think there could be a lot of use cases, but I think what you mean is that those applications that need faster response time, right, without reliance on the networks and all that stuff. That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I think before we end, I do have one last question, rather, from one of my friends who are watching this live on Facebook. And I think the question, David, they're asking us, right? Is the fedora and the red hat that we have behind here, is it like a prop, or is it something that um, all red hat employees have? So, David, maybe you would like to answer, right? So this is,
Well,
yeah, just to show this is not computer graphics, it's an actual fedora, right?
yeah, it is. I'm on my second Fedora, actually. My first one got stolen somehow. I think they're a very attractive item. They're the best piece of swag that Red Hat has to offer. And yeah, we wear them at marketing events. I think a joke that Tommy told me earlier in the day was that Red Hat doesn't trust us with our haircuts, so they provide a hat. It's standard equipment for each Red Hatter. We eat our own dog food at Red Hat, man.
Yep. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The fedora is not for show. It is an actual fedora that each red hatters actually get. So I think that's all the time we have for this week. Before you leave us, or before we leave you, please do share your feedback in the by scanning the QR code that's provided in the panel below here. right? Or via the link in the comment box and stand a chance to win a coffee voucher on us. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and participation in these talks. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as David and myself have. If you'd like to see more of these sessions, please remember to leave your comments and feedbacks in the comment section or feedback form. David, this is our 6th episode for this series, and I think today marks the last episode. So myself and David, right, we'd actually like to show our appreciation and give our thanks to all our audiences who have joined us for so many of these sessions. So we'd like to give you a big round of applause, a standing ovation. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting us throughout all these sessions.
Thanks, guys.
Also, a big shout out to the Red Hat marketing team for making this all possible. So thank you guys for following us through all these episodes. Last but not least, lots of love to everyone out there. Stay safe. Myself and David would like to wish you guys. And we really hope that you have enjoyed our talks. If you feel that there's anything else we should talk about, please feel free to put them on the comments and feedback session. So, and one last reminder for those of you who have missed the previous episodes, you can actually catch the recordings of those episodes via following the URL, which is actually being shown in the screen below right now, right? So, thank you so much, guys, for attending, and have a great day ahead.